Everybody, welcome to another edition of the Leadership Blend Live podcast with your host, Ricardo D. Rice, and my prodigal sister.
I was hoping you'd skip that, Simone Cherie.
Oh, I'm gonna give it. You gonna get it today. Like, you left me by myself for like 3 weeks. You gonna get it today. You might as well get ready for it. And it's the last show.
I'm ready.
Season. And it's the last show of the season.
And I would never miss the last show of the season.
You're so gracious. Like, you're so gracious. All right, so today in the studio, we have an amazing gentleman who drove all the way from South Carolina, which means a lot to us at the show over here. So we are so excited to have Mr. Kelvin Waits. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm glad to be here.
We're excited to have you. So we're getting into all things law enforcement. I'm not even going to read his bio. I'm going to let him do his own bio so y'all can see how legit and how serious this man is. So tell everybody about you.
Okay, my name's Kelvin Waits. I was born in Harlem, New York.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, lived there till I was about 10 years old.
Oh, well, you don't count then. You're not a real South Carolinian then. I thought you were from South Carolina. Oh.
And then my parents realized that things were pretty tough, so they decided to move us to Charleston, South Carolina, and that's where I spent the rest of my time growing up. Graduated from high school, went to college for a couple of years on a football scholarship, and really wasn't mature enough at the time to deal with what I had in front of me, so I know I needed to get my life together, so I went and joined the military. And in the process of college was not a waste because I met my wife in college.
Who's in the studio with us? Shouts out to the wife in the corner over there.
Shout out to my wife, Shalise Waits. Met my wife in college and ended up going in the military. Got out of the military in 1997 and started a career in law enforcement. Never had any plans to be in law enforcement at all as a kid. I wasn't jumping up and down and say I want to be the police. That was not, that just wasn't, to be totally honest. When I went to college, I studied broadcast communications. I wanted to do what y'all do.
Seriously? What school did you go to?
I went to Newberry College.
My one of my friends went to Newberry.
Went to Newberry College, and so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to either be on BET or work for ESPN.
I can see ESPN.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. But anyway, went in the military, got out, started my career in law enforcement in 1997 at the local sheriff's office in Georgetown, and been in law enforcement ever since. Had an opportunity to meet some cool people. I attended the FBI Academy. I attended the DEA Academy. Always kind of seemed to be grinding and in the right place at the right time. And so I finished my career. I actually retired from law enforcement August 9th of 2021. And I moved on. And so now I work for an organization called AMI Kids. We serve young people, young men, ages 12 to 15, who are in trouble. They come to us, directed to us from the Department of Juvenile Justice. Anything from grand larceny to truancy to attempted murder. And they come to us and we work with them. They go to school every day. We get them mental health treatment. We really work with them to pull the layers back and help people realize that, hey, these are kids. And so, it's refreshing for me because for the past 24 and a half years, I've been kind of on the other side dealing with adults. And so now I get to really, be involved in these young men's lives ahead of time. You know what I'm saying? Because 12 to 15 is an important time for them, especially to get it right. You know what I'm saying? And they still have that opportunity to get it right. So we see the kids laugh. I mean, we take them fishing. We do a lot with them to try to get them back in the right situation. Sometimes though, they do have to go back home, and sometimes they go back, the difficult situations. But we do the best we can while we have.
So you very recently retired. Do people still call you chief?
Absolutely.
Is that normal? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't want to do it without permission.
No, it's all good. It's all good. But Kevin is fine. Kevin is fine. Yes.
So
you call him Chief Kevin?
I mean, I was gonna say Chief.
I get
Waits,
that too.
But
I get that too.
Yeah. Call him Chief Kevin.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of really important news updates this morning that I feel like we could breathe into.
Let's get on the rundown.
Very easily breathe back. Yeah. So, and we're in the state of Georgia. We talked at length about the murder trial for Ahmaud Arbery happening in Cobb County, which is essentially because it's not happening in Cobb County. What happened was over the course of 3 very interesting recusals and removals and arrangements from our attorney general, the DA for the case moved, and former DA Jackie Johnson, who lost her re-election race in Glenn County anyway, was indicted since we've had the last conversation.
She was.
Yeah, for more broadly, tipping off essentially and not looking into the case and sort of just taking the word of the McMichaels, the defendants in this case, who she knew personally. So Our DA Flynn Brody's office is the prosecuting attorney's office that will be handling the case, but it is still happening in Glenn County. There have been protests outside the Glenn County courthouse all week. So I thought we could talk a little bit about the Ahmaud Arbery case, refresh everyone's memory in case they forgot.
The weird thing is we have people on both sides. So Flynn is a friend to the show, and Gerald Griggs is a friend to the show, and Gerald Griggs is a part of these protests that are in front of there, because when he was with me, he was headed down there that weekend. So it's funny we're on both sides of it.
Well, the states, so the defense is different, right? Like the defense attorneys. First of all, I'm not incredibly familiar with this defense attorney, but I know that I know he's got like a decent track record. We haven't had any of those attorneys on our show. So we have had the state on our show. Generally speaking, when we're talking about these sorts of issues, it's important. You're bringing up a good point. We need to kind of outline who is representing who. So the state is representing Wanda, is representing Ahmaud's mother, Ahmaud's family, the victims. So they did opening statements this morning, and that's the last opening statement I got to watch before the trial cut off. So I think that's worth just kind of digging into and giving people the like highlights of what's going on, what's happened, what we can expect. And then another case that I want to make sure people haven't forgotten about that relates to citizens' arrest. And then I think we can probably move on and get to law enforcement more broadly, because there's a lot going on and a lot that I know you'll be able to speak to. But if you haven't been keeping up, which I understand because it's been 2.5 weeks, the Glenn County has been in jury selection, basically pulling out half the county, as I mentioned before the show, to get a jury in there, to get a qualified jury pool of impartial jurors, of people who will not be compromised. We advocate for jury summons all the time here at this show, and I always encourage people to always obey and show up for the jury summons and don't try to weasel out of it, and don't mess around, because these cases are very important and we need the public's opinion, and nobody likes jury service, which is understandable.
Except you. We actually be hoping to get picked.
No. That's not true. I believe in the right to be picked, right? And so I have qualms about how the pool is selected sometimes. But anyway, this particular pool in Glenn County it took 2.5 weeks to sort through, and there were lots of different sorts of removals, and we ultimately landed on a jury. And today opening statements began. So the jury pool has made headlines mostly because of the racial composition of the jury, because there are 11 jurors that are white and 1 that is black.
Not amazing. Like, how does that work? One with all the fact that they're actually willing to move forward with only 1 and they're okay with it. I think when I think about this, the scary part about this is it happened, and if it hadn't been videoed by somebody, they would have gotten away with this. I think that's the scary part, that vigilante justice is just that rampant in these smaller towns, to the point where they can do this, call the DA, and she tries to scramble it and make it go away. And if it wasn't for being videoed, we would have never seen this. Like this, that's scary to me. That it makes me feel like we still live in Jim Crow days. Like this is a whole connectivity thing that they call her. She tries to cover it up, and if it wasn't for a surface video, everybody would have gotten away with it.
Yeah, well, fortunately, it was the defendants who took the video, right? Like it was William Bryan, and it was the McMichaels who videotaped it themselves, which just kind of goes to show maybe how justified they felt that they were in their actions in the first place. Like, we're going to videotape what we're doing. So anyway, yeah, that's what we ended up at. The county itself, according to the most recent census, is a little over a quarter black. It's like 26% black. Over 67% white American. So it is a small proportion. But
then we should have got 2. We should at least had 2.
2 and a pop.
2 to 3. 1 is unacceptable. 2 or 3 is fine. I don't care if we're the minority, clearly. 2 or 3 would have been fine. But 1, bro, we're not doing that.
Well, Wanda Cooper Jones, who's Ahmaud Arbery's mother, has gone on the record and said that she doesn't care what the jury looks like. Everybody knows what this case is about, and she still feels confident. And I'm glad to hear her say that. I certainly still feel the same way.
I can't say that. Well, I can't. I don't even know how y'all got there. I can't say that. Like,
I feel pretty confident. I mean, the judge who's presiding over this case, so Judge Walmsley, you were saying who allowed that. He's been very strict and scrupulous about what's allowed and what isn't allowed. He's prevented a lot of information from being brought in that the McMichaels attorneys have tried to bring in about Ahmaud's background, about his history, about his activities, about his health. He shut all of that down and prevented any of that from being brought in, and they've continued to push and say, well, isn't that relevant, or isn't it relevant to the autopsy? Or like, well, what if we could bring in an expert to prove it was relevant? And the judge has been pretty quick to shut it all down and say, you're not going to.
I'm just not willing to believe that people are going to do the right thing, because if that's the case, the George Floyd Act would have already been passed by now. Y'all watch this around the world that's happening. So why are we still fighting about this? So I don't believe people are instinctively good. So no, I don't feel good about 11 jurors and 1 black and assuming they're going to do the right thing. Well, I don't.
There's 2 different battles here. Like there's two different wars that wage in our branches of government, and like one is the legislative branch, which is very slow. But like the judicial system, our criminal legal system is a branch. Our courts are a branch in and of themselves, and the criminal legal system functions as an agent of those courts. So it's different. I mean, we find we were just talking about a different case this morning. Judges have the final say if there is a plea reached, and if there's no plea reached, then the jury will have the final say, and it will be a jury of citizens of everyday. But to their point, we did talk about this. Like, it's very hard to find a jury that is completely unaware of this case. Like, even the county actually got into a little bit of trouble, and there was motions filed because on their website there was information about the case that people felt was really prejudicial, and they said, like, how can you have this on your website? Basically like eliminating a jury pool right there. So it's tough though to find people who don't already have an opinion about what happened, because we've seen Ahmaud's face on t-shirts and on posters and on walls, and we know this story pretty well by now.
That's because it was atrocious.
Yeah.
So, it was atrocious. But you see the look on my face? All that what you said is great, but you see the look on my face?
Yeah.
2 or 3. I don't want 1. 2 or 3. I'm not trying to hear it. Any thoughts on
Yes,
this?
please.
Tragic situation. You want to believe in your system. You know what I'm saying? So I understand what you're saying. You want to believe in your system. I know that during the process, each side, the prosecution and the defendant sides, they get so many strikes to try to get it right in terms of getting the right jury in place. And obviously, at this point, no matter what the jury looks like, they feel like they have a jury that they can seek for this case. So all you can do is hope for the best, and people look at what's there and do the right thing.
Yeah.
Y'all can hold y'all.
I mean, that really is all. That really is all that we can do.
I just know that if it doesn't go the right way, all hell is gonna break loose. Let's be very clear about that. This is not gonna end well if this does not go well. So y'all can have y'all 1 juror and take a chance on that 1 juror. But I'm telling you, you need 2 or 3. But whatever. I digress.
Well, that's the thing though. They need a majority. Like there has to be a unanimous verdict. Ultimately, that's the even harder part about juries, which is
I didn't say give them 6. I didn't say 6 blacks. I said 2 or 3. That's enough to make it look good. But optic-wise, 1 black juror is not acceptable.
Okay, you're talking about optics. I'm thinking about the outcome.
Well, that too. I'm just saying you really feel safe with 1 black person.
I know, but I'm just saying the outcome can't be guaranteed with 6. I mean, like
we have better. It's about optics.
All it takes is 1 juror to just decide that
again. If this is not end well, this is not going to go well. That's all I got to say about that. But I digress.
My only other mention for sort of high-profile cases is the death of Kenneth Herring. If you're not familiar with Kenneth Herring's case, it's because I think that his case came to light around the same time that Breonna Taylor's case came to light and Ahmaud Arbery's case came to light, and it got very quickly shuffled under the papers. But Kenneth Herring was a resident of South Atlanta of Clayton County, and he was 62 years old, and he was killed in his own car because a 21-year-old young white girl felt like he left the scene of an accident that didn't involve her and chased him down and called the police. And the police told her to stop chasing him. She refused to stop chasing him. She got out of her vehicle after cornering him, threatened to, yelled at him to leave his vehicle. He would not leave his vehicle. She went back to her own vehicle to retrieve a firearm, and he was killed in his own car. And that trial, this happened in 2019. She was granted bail before and after being charged with murder with malice, and has been on bail and working ever since. And it's been a little over almost 2 years now. Almost 2 years? Over 2 years since the incident.
And she been living her best life.
Yeah. And I didn't say that.
You didn't have to. I said it.
But however, last year she did request some flexibility on her house arrest and on her bail because she felt like her hours weren't long enough. She didn't have enough time to be away from the house. Anyway, it's very rare for anybody charged with something like murder with malice plus all the other charges. I think there's 8 charges total to get bail, let alone to request some sort of a modification of bail. So we're going to see what happens with that case, but the trial is finally moving today. So the news was that this morning there was a pretrial conference. I'm sure we'll have updates soon, but they're no longer live streaming from that courthouse. So Judge Shana Rooks Malone is the judge that you need to follow if you want to know what's going on with that case. And we care about all cases.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yep.
Well, In other news, before we shifted to Mr. Waits, Atlanta saw the best and the worst week.
You're so despondent still.
So the best and the worst week. The best because, hey, the Braves won the World Series. Yay. Now they can pay for the stadium that put Cobb County in the hole.
It's good news.
But yay, they won that. And we decided to take the kids out of school who are already behind so they can do the parade today. Yay.
I mean, hey.
No, unacceptable. And in worst news, we are at a runoff for mayor of Atlanta with Felicia Moore and
Andre Dickens.
Oh, God.
City councilman at large.
The best week and the worst week. And in worst news, I went to see the Eternals, which is god awful. So it's been a great week for me, even though my birthday was Sunday.
That I am very sorry about, because I know that you love those movies. I really am sorry that it didn't live up to your expectations.
I'm almost in tears. I'm not crying, you're crying, but I'm almost in tears because it's just, I never thought I would see a Marvel movie trash, and yet here we are.
Well, if you live in the city of Atlanta, the runoff is November 30th, so you need to vote in that runoff. It's very important. That's all I have to say.
I hate this. Best and worst week ever in Atlanta. But okay, you know what? Whatever. So we're going to shift and get into law enforcement. I'm going to let you start there.
Well, I was just going to say, we had a lot of conversations about a sizable investment that the city of Atlanta.
Sizable? That's what we call it? That's you 90 million.
I thought you wanted me to introduce it.
I mean, I get about that. I digress.
There was a significant investment signed off on after hours and hours of public comment and objection, which kind of became known as Cop City here in the city of Atlanta.
So that's what they call it. That's what they named it. They named it Cop City. Let's be very clear.
Okay.
We're not going to mince words here, Simone. Let's be very clear.
I'm just trying to be very factual before we.
Let's be very clear about this. The Atlanta City Council, which has a significant number of African Americans, voted to allocate $90 million to a development called Cop City. When we have other pressing issues from affordable housing to homeless to just everything else, and African Americans, black folk, voted to divert $90 million to Cop City. That's not minced words. That's what that was.
Yes. Well, some of the concerns are that there's, for one thing, there's an environmental concern, right? Because of some of the land that is being used.
It was supposed to be delegated for like a beautification project.
Exactly.
Of some magnitude.
And not to mention the optics of this. The optics of this deal, the police, Benevolent Association and the Georgia Sheriff's Association being such vocal supporters of this bill, and it kind of coming on the tail end of a big like anti-defund movement, which was passed at the state legislature. So essentially a bill that was passed at the state level to prevent any city from taking more than 5% away from its police force. When at the time... Right.
About qualified immunity, we were still talking about that.
We were.
So we wasn't even done with that conversation, and y'all decided to bypass all these conversations we've been having for the last year, and we're in the streets about last year, and say, oh no, we're gonna give $90 million, and you guys just figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And under the umbrella of like this crime conversation as well. So like the crime conversation that we've been having ever since the pandemic started, way outside of Atlanta, not just Atlanta, I mean, just nationally talking about crime and the uptick in violent crimes across the country. So that's what's essentially happened. It's been like, it was a big announcement that, again, had really huge public outcry and outrage and
because it's foolishness.
To the point where they had to actually cut it off. Like they went well into like 4 a.m. one night listening to public commentary, basically people saying they didn't want it for different reasons.
And the two people that were on this board that made
many people did vote
are the two finalists in the office for mayor. Do you see my disgust? Do you see my? But these are the same folks that will sit on those debates and tell me, "Oh, we're concerned about affordable housing." How? When you just allocated $90 million to this foolishness? I digress. I'm not gonna go.
You retired. Let's sort of open this up for you. You retired at a time where I think, at least in the city of Atlanta, we've had many, many conversations about what we do for our own police, what we don't do for our police, why retention rates are so low, why we are not able to keep folks on the force, and why we're having such a hard time hiring, and basically just the overall tone and like discouragement of our officers, and watching our city and these upticks in crime, maybe as a direct result or at least somewhat correlated to that. So I feel like I don't know the situation in Georgetown. Mm-hmm. But in Atlanta, it was just very, very, very timely. We were watching a lot of resignations happen with our police all over the metro Atlanta area. So what do you make of like this current climate and policing?
It's a tough time. The industry as a whole, I would say has a black eye. Of course, I've been in law enforcement for 20 plus years, and I know that, I tell people all the time that, I have been black and blue, black first, you know what I mean? And, it is a very tough time to be in this industry. People are resigning, in terms of recruiting. Nobody's getting the recruits that they used to get. It's just a tough time. I've had a situation where an officer came in. He actually went to the academy, came out first in his class, came out, worked for a week, sat down in my office and started crying. Said, "Hey, I can't do this.
Really?
I can't do it." Yeah, it's just tough. It's tough. And just like I tell people all the time, just like doctors, just like preachers, teachers. Law enforcement is a calling. You can't just wake up and say, I want to do this. It is a calling. And if you don't have a heart to serve, a heart of service, you're not going to last long. So, we, nationwide, we need to focus on psychological evaluations for law enforcement officers as they come in. I mean, extensive background.
That's not mandatory now?
It is mandatory in South Carolina, but I don't believe it's mandatory nationwide. It's not mandatory nationwide. In extensive backgrounds, even include polygraph examinations. I mean, we have to do, as leaders in law enforcement and legislators, we have to be the gatekeepers to really keep people out of this industry that do not need to be here, because that's where the problem is. That's what the problem is. And of course, the leadership and everybody up top, they set the tone for the organization in terms of culture and what is going to be allowed. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. What is going to be allowed? Because just like, not comparing law enforcement to children, but if you have children, you raise your children a certain way. And when they step out of line, you correct them. But if that's not the culture, bad things will run rampant.
So let me ask, for those, because we like to start very basic. For those that do not know what a police chief does, tell us what a police chief does. For those that do not know.
Oh man, for any police chief, it is your obligation and duty to protect your jurisdiction. So for the city of Atlanta, your police chief first and foremost job is to maintain the safety and security of the citizens in this city. The police chief is the ambassador, not just for the police department, but for the city, because in any jurisdiction, who do you see more than anybody just in the public's face every day? It's law enforcement. So they are ambassadors. And the sad thing is that so many things have happened that the trust is broken, right? Even when a police officer is trying to do the right thing. And back in the day, when we would grow up, the older folks would say, hey, if you just meet me halfway, we can make some things happen. But we're at a point now where there's no meeting halfway, right? So what has to happen is law enforcement, government, really, in my opinion, just my opinion, we have to reach beyond. We have to find ways to engage the community like we have never, ever engaged the community before. We have to sit at tables like this and listen to people that we traditionally did not listen, because people want to have a voice. Everybody has a voice, but they want to be heard. And I think, for an industry, I don't think that we have always done the best job of listening, right? We get a 911 call, we got to go. We're going. And when we get there, we got to fix something. You know what I'm saying? And I think sometimes we have an opportunity to slow down. When we have an opportunity to slow down and really step back and listen and figure out, because our problem is, our goal is, at the end of the day, our responsibility is not just to walk around writing tickets all day. Mm-hmm. It is to help the community solve problems, period.
So that thought process of allocating money, the thought process behind defunding the police, is that something we really should be looking into? Not so much that we don't have police, that we're sending mental health officers who are not strapped to those kind of situations. Yeah. Would that kind of help if we looked at it from that perspective?
Yes, I believe it would help now. But I'm telling you, after being in law enforcement so long, I realize and I understand that the resources that we do have, we need plus. You know what I'm saying? And when I say plus, I mean better pay, to get higher quality, you know what I'm saying? For training, We need, but in addition to that, law enforcement officers are not trained mental health professionals. You know what I'm saying? But they're called to deal with it every day. So, mental health, it's real. It is real, and it is real in these streets for real. It is real, and so that like I said, from my perspective, right, law enforcement needs the resources that they have and more. But just like a good toolbox, you know what I'm saying, you got to have all kind of tools in there, and mental health professionals, crisis intervention professionals, all of that needs to come to the table. And I think we can make it happen, but everybody has to step back, right? Get rid of the egos and really look at this thing holistically. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the police. It's not about the police chief. It's not about, it's about the community. And that's what we forget about. We sometimes get caught up in politics and who's in this party and who's in that party. But at the end of the day, it's really about humanity. And so if we put humanity first, we can make some things happen. But unfortunately, that doesn't always happen.
So let me ask you, with the example that you use about the guy that was first in his class and came into the office, was there something missing in the training that didn't prepare him for that, or that just was just him? He just wasn't strong enough to do it? Because I guess my question is the evolution of training happening? Like every year, every couple of years, are we updating training to account for what's happening in the climate? Or is it just one of those, this is what it is, this is what it looks like, go do what you do?
No, absolutely. It wasn't the training. It was the fact, and I'll be more specific, it was the fact that he had to arrest somebody. He had to arrest somebody. And he told me out of his own mouth, he said, Chief, when I put the handcuffs on him and I took him into that jail, I realized right away that this job wasn't for me. I just couldn't do it.
How did he? I have to arrest folks if I'm a policeman.
Yeah. But guess what? He cried. I sat next to him and I said, man, it's okay. Because, Ricardo and Simone, I had more. And think about it this way, because there's more than one way to, look at it. I had more respect for that guy. You know what I'm saying? Because he put it out there ahead of time. He could have stayed there, right? He could have been macho. He could have stayed there. And guess what? Something bad could have happened. So I didn't have any issue with that at all. And, and my practice has always been, as people come in, we sit down and I have the last conversation with them. I'm like, look, why are you here? Why are you here? You know what I'm saying? Because if you're just here, just because you want to write tickets or lock up the bad guy, you're in the wrong place. If you're here because you want to serve, we can start there and we can build something. So, no, I had much respect for that guy. I was disappointed, but I had much respect that he would open up and tell it what it is, call it the way it was, and leave at that point on a good note instead of just rocking through and grinding through.
Yeah, being terrible.
That's right.
But the truth is absolutely not for everyone.
It's not.
And I don't think it's a reflection of character whatsoever. No. And I also think there are doctors who stop practicing after 15 years and just decide, you know what, this isn't how I plan on spending my time. I'm pushing more paper than I am talking to patients. I'm curious about that. When you mentioned it briefly when you were talking about gatekeeping and psychological evaluations, but like the law enforcement officers I've been able to talk to, I don't really think that I don't think it's a matter of being strong or not strong. I think the reality is that the things that were just described to me that I just hear from officers, like I have nightmares about hearing about it.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a question of strength. I think it's a reality of how do you maintain, a career seeing the sorts of things that most people only see through a screen in a movie in a false reality, and this is actual reality.
That's a good
and then
question.
How do you go and you have those calls, and then maybe you do have tickets that you write.
Yeah.
But you don't forget those sorts of experiences. And I don't understand, is there enough support? Is there a point in which this is just, it's too much for a full career?
Well, I don't think if you, in any industry, in any career, you have to manage stress, right? And you have to have the tools available, at your use to be able to do so. When I first started, I can remember, and my wife can attest to this, I can remember a situation that was very traumatic for me, but I didn't realize it. You know what I'm saying? I did not realize it. What people don't understand is that all the times, law enforcement officers see things that they can't unsee. You can't hit reset. You can't hit rewind. You can't erase it. You know what I'm saying? And so you have to learn you have to be able to have the tools to manage that. And so I saw something, and it wasn't until 10 to 12 years later that I dealt with it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But at the time, there was nothing in place. You know, it was old school, you know, hey, suck it up. You know what I'm saying? Drive on. You know what I'm saying? But what population do police officers come from? That question is for y'all. What population do police officers come from?
Population.
Yeah. Where do they come from? Are they shipped here from another plant?
No, they're just you and me.
This will be
the same population as everybody else. So, you know, we hurt, we bleed, we cry. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and so there has to be programs in place. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to my old department in my old city. We had an employee assistance program in place. Shout out to South Carolina. They have debriefing for police officers who have been involved in traumatic situations, which is a big deal, because you can't take a police officer and who's been in a critical incident and sit him down in front of a doctor and say, okay, talk to him. He may or may, she may or may not. Mm-hmm. But when they have a group of their peers that are trained in debriefing people during critical incidents, they're more prone to open up. And so I know for a fact we have the South Carolina Law Enforcement Assistance Program that does that. And I was actually a part of that team for several years. So if something happened in another part of the state, I get a call, I get an update on what the deal is, and we would respond. It was like a task force, a statewide task force. And it's needed because, to your point, we see things, law enforcement officers see things, and not just law enforcement, firefighters, but I mean, you know what I'm saying, EMS, you see things that you cannot unsee, and you have to be able to deal with it. My wife will tell you that very seldom did I come home and talk about work.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know what I'm saying? Sure. I mean, because I always wanted that separation, you know what I'm saying? And so, to answer your question, I survived it through faith, right? Mm-hmm. Through faith, in my family, and just a strong support system, because it's not easy. It's not easy.
Females in law enforcement, has that changed over the course of time? Because at one time it was like, oh my God, a female police officer, good God, we really doing this? Yes, and I'm 42, so yeah, and in our day it was like, oh my God, you gonna be a policeman as a female? Like, that's not a thing. Has that changed? Does it look better for females, especially moving up in law enforcement?
In my opinion, it does. Females in law enforcement. I know females in law enforcement that if I got in trouble, I would want them to back me up. I mean, they do an incredible job. They do an incredible job, and a lot of times they bring situations that a male police officer may not even intentionally want to escalate, right? But just because of his presence and his stature and his stance, you know what I'm saying, may escalate something. Right. A lot of times they bring it straight on down. You know what I'm saying? They bring it straight on down. So no, I believe. Now, do they overall do females, I believe, get the respect and just due that they should in law enforcement? I don't believe so. I don't believe so. But they bring so much to the table, and they are so important and critical to what we do.
Okay. I had a community education question. Like, I wanted to ask you about this, and we had a couple conversations with some attorneys we've had on the show, defense attorneys mostly, because I feel like there's a huge gap between how people are legally supposed to interact with officers during a police stop and what they think they're supposed to do or not supposed to do. And we've seen enough interactions at this point that people tend to have the same beliefs no matter what state they live in. They tend to think, oh, I don't have to do this or I don't have to do that. But that's not true, and in Georgia, for example, you do have to sign a ticket, or if your request for your ID, you do have to present it. And in Arizona, you have to. But a lot of people, I don't think, know what they have to do and what they don't have to do. And like, I know that there are lots of different departments trying to do their own community education. I feel like there may be a need for like a massive intervention, like at the school level. It's like, this is a basic interaction that you're probably going to have as an adult. Yeah. You should know what you do and don't have to do, so that people don't feel like they're being violated when they're really not, but they think they are because.
Yeah. So, a few minutes ago, I talked about engaging the community like we have never engaged before. And a lot of law enforcement agencies that I know of are putting on what they call academies, citizens academies, right? Where they bring in the general public. Yeah, they actually take applications. You're from the community, a little brief background check, and they bring people in and give them an inside look of what happens. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they put them through simulations of digital simulations to see, shoot, don't shoot situations. They bring them in and they talk to them about crime scenes. They talk to them about tickets, every victim's advocates, every part of it, to educate them, right? To also go back at the same time, because they can't take the whole community at one time, but to go back and be ambassadors. And so when Johnny's standing out there and he sees something going wrong and he says, oh, they can't do that, Miss Betty, Aunt Betty, whoever said, no, son, you know what? I got educated on this. And I went through this academy and A, B, C, D, that's right. But the other stuff is wrong. You see what I'm saying? But we have to engage that. You know what I'm saying? We have to do that. There's also people that from communities have said, hey, can you come, just talk to the kids, talk to, virtual calls. This pandemic has been off the chain in terms of
I'm sure
people using technology. And so there's really no excuse. You know what I'm saying? That information can be pushed out there, but I've seen the Citizens Academies be very effective in doing what you're talking about.
Diversity and inclusion at the higher levels, because you've been at the FBI level as well. What does that look like? Is it very diverse? Is it starting to go back to the old boy system where everybody kind of looks the same?
Yeah.
What are we looking at?
So are we talking diverse? Let me say this. We know that we can be, and I heard a young lady say it earlier. You know what I'm saying? We can be diverse. You can be diverse, but not be included, right? You see what I'm saying? And sometimes it happens. And sometimes, organizations, governments, whatever, they check boxes, right? But stay. You see what I'm saying? Corner. Yeah, but I'm hopeful. You know what I'm saying? I had an opportunity and I'm blessed, and I know it wasn't nothing but God to be the first African American police chief in the third oldest city in South Carolina. And so, it was a very humbling and unique situation for me. And so I am very hopeful. I don't have any horror stories to tell you about anybody treating me a certain way because of what I look like. I don't have those horror stories. I mean, I've had opportunity, but networking and knowing people and the community coming together. And I've learned that we can put the stuff aside, man. We can put the stuff aside. Sometimes we are forced to do it through crisis, right? What happens when crisis comes? A big storm coming. Everybody right there together. We
kumbaya in those moments.
Music, right?
Mm-hmm. True.
Love. You know what I'm saying? Several things, man, bring us together. But right after the conclusion, right? The benediction, everybody goes right back, to the corner. And I've learned, I can tell you, I share a funny story with y'all. I was asked to go and speak at a Men's Day program at one of my officers one time. And he said, can you come to my church and just talk? It's Men's Day. Just talk 15, 20 minutes about men's stuff. So I said, okay. And so, me and my wife went. We got there about 10:30. And, we're sitting there. I wanted to get there a little early just to see what's what. And so we got there and I'm sitting in the parking lot, and it was during election time. So cars started pulling in and people started showing up. Well, when, I saw the cars coming, I looked at my wife. I said, you know what? These people don't want to hear what I got to say. I said that. I made that judgment based on what I saw initially. And I see the look on your face, but I'm gonna help you understand. You know what I'm saying? I said, they don't want to hear what I got to say. Because as everybody was coming in, everybody was Caucasian, right? And everybody had, the majority of the cars had Trump stickers on it.
Oh,
right. So here am I in my mind, but let me continue the story. We walk in, there's about 250 people. Of course, we're the only minorities in the church. So I'm like, oh boy, my anxiety is high because so I go up, I do my thing, I say what I got to say. And afterwards, we couldn't get out. Really? They wanted to fellowship. They wanted to eat. Please stay, hugs, handshakes. And I had to check myself because I went in that situation and I called it wrong from the beginning, based off of history and different things, you know what I'm saying? But going into that situation, I slightly had a bias, you know what I'm saying, that I had to check myself on and it didn't turn out the way I thought it would. So, it's a tough topic, not just for even law enforcement, but just in general. You know what I'm saying? Diversity and inclusion nationwide in general is just a tough thing that we got to deal with, but we got to deal with it.
So when we talk about restoring trust in the police department, what does that look like? How do we even begin to build that bridge to restore that? Because I know it's got to be more than what it used to be. Because at one time you could just show up in a community, give a nice little speech and kind of walk off and everybody's like, yay, that's not going to work now. So what does that actually look like?
So I can tell you from my experience that it looks like doing the work, and the work is engaging the community. The work is sitting at this table with people who we traditionally have not listened to, and we have to listen. We have to recognize that everybody has a voice, right? So from the law enforcement side, my perspective is we need to do a better job of listening and holding our people accountable when we need to, right? Make sure they get the training, do it, do our part on our side. But from the community standpoint, it is not going to work unless we do it together. Someone said a long time ago that the people are the police and the police are the people. And I truly believe that, because like we talked about earlier, we all come from the same population. And so, when somebody puts on a uniform, they're not necessarily transformed into something evil. They're still a dad, they're still a brother, they're still, you know what I'm saying? I mean, and so, but we have to do it together, because if we don't do it together, it's not going to work. I can tell you that after the murder of George Floyd, in my community, just like every other place around the nation, tensions were extremely high, right? And we were kind of tucked away in between Myrtle Beach and Charleston, and we looked to the north and things were rough, you know what I'm saying? And we looked to the south and things were rough. And so, leading up to some marches we had, got several calls. Hey, Chief, we marching. We marching and we planning, but we want you to come to the meeting. And I'll tell anybody, I've got a chance to train with people from all around the world. My roommate at the FBI Academy was from Uganda. You know what I'm saying? I've trained with people from all around the world. But if anybody ever asked me what the highlight of my career was, I would speak to this time where the community called and say, we are marching, you know what I'm saying? Come be a part. Let's sit down and talk about it. And so we did, my staff did. And I can tell you that, we didn't have any drama, when one bottle broke, it wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? I mean, people came out and protested peacefully, and it was a good thing, because what I explained to the police officers is, my guys, before we hit the street is, look, people are hurting. Hell, I'm hurting. You know what I'm saying? And so everybody, this happened in front of us in everybody's living room in the world. Literally. It's traumatizing. People are hurting. And so don't be mad or get it twisted or feel some type of way because people want to protest, because people are saying defund the police. Everybody has their own belief, their own perspective, and their right to feel how they want to feel. So I said, listen, if anything, we have an opportunity to go out today and shine a positive light on our industry. And so to answer your question, to me, that's what it looks like. But it takes work, and that work has to be done way ahead of time before crisis comes. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we got to start somewhere. And even if it's just a cup of coffee at a local coffee shop, we got to stop somewhere. If it's just the officers going and visiting with the kids at, in preschool and kindergarten to help them realize that, hey, I'm here to help you. I'm your friend. Don't hold your head down when you see me and look at the ground. Don't go the other way. I'm here to help you. But those are the things that got to happen. But we got to do it together. I'm going to be quiet now because I've been talking for a while. But we got to do it together.
That's what you do. We can't talk all the time. That's why we got you here to talk. I mean.
Yeah. And I appreciate it. One of the things I was going to ask as well is that, like, I've had the blessing and and the burden of being a very willful child. And so I feel like I've had enough interactions with police to have some.
What does that mean?
I feel like you meant. I'm going to explain. I've had many interactions with police, and many were unnecessary.
Mm-hmm. Did you mean rambunctious? I feel like you meant to say you were a rambunctious child.
You can call it a lot of things, but as a child, as an adult, and so I've had enough interactions with police. I've had some good ones, right. And I feel like I think part of this is maybe a bit of a community education thing, but also like a culture shift and a cultural awareness piece is that like I feel like for most people, because they do have such few and such scant interactions with officers, you know, I talked to somebody the other day who said, I don't think I've ever got a ticket when an officer was in a good mood, which is, I mean, hey, makes sense. But I also kind of feel like maybe there's something to be said about less officer interactions in the first place. Like there are certain things that I feel like are major public safety concerns. Like I want to be able to pick up the phone and I want an officer to come. Yeah. I want him to come quickly. Right. And you know, that's what you want the police for. Yeah. But I feel like some things maybe I feel like aren't public safety functions so much as regulations and things like city ordinances and things that like frankly cameras catch all the time. And then maybe we don't need as many citizen officer interactions for. Maybe that is, I'm not gonna say a waste of an officer's skills or training, but it's definitely not public safety in the same sense that I think most people really care about.
So you're saying, help me understand. So you're saying that in some cases you think police over police.
And I think in some cases our government uses police for functions that we don't need them to carry out because we do have cameras. So, you know, and we do have other ways of enforcing laws other than those interactions.
I can agree with that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's helpful for me to know. I didn't know if it was just me or not. But I mean, but to that point, it's like some things are certainly unsafe, but some things I just feel like aren't. And when we had this conversation the other day with Attorney Griggs, and he said, you know, that they can't even count how many laws are on the books between like the city and a state and the national level. There's just so many ordinances that every adult basically commits a crime every single day. And so we really do need to think, I think, more strategically about what we want our officers who are trained and who are post-certified, what we want them to be doing to keep our community safe. That's right. And maybe we just don't need enforcement for whatever ordinance, you know, whatever zone or parking or.
I mean, if we get, you know, I talk about this all the time. If we get into what's actually written versus what's actually enforced, they don't look the same. Like there are a lot of things that could be enforced, and there are a lot of things that we just don't enforce, but we could if we wanted to. Yeah. So that's always been a thing. So my question for you, let me see how much time we got now.
We have less than 9 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have to get to pay too.
What?
To get to pay. Officer pay.
Oh, well, go ahead then.
I wanted to ask your opinion about that. Like, I didn't know if that would have anything to do with recruitment or with retention, but I feel like officer pay is incredibly low, and I wanted your thoughts on that, and then I wanted your thoughts on what you think makes sense.
Well, let me before you do that.
Okay.
Every civil servant's pay is low. If we're honest, teachers, firefighters. Is it a budgetary issue that they need more money to delegate to that, or is it just that's just what it is and that's what it's always been? Like, what is the issue on that one?
That is what it's always been, but police officers need to be paid more. I mean, you know, there's and I'm not trying to, you know, slight what we're talking about. I'm not trying to be funny. Y'all can tell I'm a serious person. You know what I'm saying? But when people say you get what you pay for, you know what I'm saying? You have to attract the quality of people that you really want on your team. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the salary for law enforcement officers, they need to be raised. They need to be raised.
So what are we looking at for an average pay for currently? What are we looking at for an average pay for a policeman?
I can, and of course, I'm not speaking nationwide. I'm talking about what from my perspective and what I know. In my area, you know, some agencies walking off the street, they'll pay a law enforcement officer $35,000 a year.
I know people at McDonald's.
If they come in certified, maybe around 40. When I say certified, I mean coming from a law enforcement, another organization, they're already trained and have their certification in law enforcement.
40.
Yes, sir.
If I climb the ladder, does the pay get significantly higher or moderately higher?
It'll get higher. Yeah, it'll get kind of in between. Yeah, but that's not the problem. The problem is the lower levels. The people that are out here in the public's eye every day, all day. We just need to do a better job of paying them. Yes.
I hear a lot of police officers say they went from the military to police. Is that like a smooth transition because of maybe the way they're trained and it's kind of similar? Because I hear a lot of people say that.
Well, I can speak in my case because, before I got in law enforcement, like I told you earlier, I was in the military. So the Army, United States Army. Yeah. I actually, do you know what Morse code is?
Yes.
I copied Morse code, intercepted Morse code when I was in the Army. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little like tap.
That's it. Bits and dials. Yeah. Yeah.
Do we still use that?
We do.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
I might need to learn that. When I saw it in the movie, I might need to learn that.
Yeah, but for me, the transition was that, I was a soldier, right? I'm coming to law enforcement and so my mindset was, lock up the bad guy. That was, I'm just keeping it real with you. That was my mindset. I'm coming from the military, and going to law enforcement. My mindset was lock up the bad guy. I did not understand the concept. I didn't understand. I wanted to serve, but in my mind, service was locking up the bad guy. Until, you go round and round and you arrest, maybe dad, and then a few years later you're arresting, a son or a nephew, and it hits you. It hit me. Okay, something's wrong. You know what I'm saying? We got to figure out a way to break this system. But to answer your question, initially, I went into it with a totally different mindset than I needed to have. But over time, I recognized, what it was and understood that it was all about service. And so everybody's different, but that was my experience.
No.
I'm about to say, okay, so with your vast knowledge in these areas, where are opportunities that we can really fill holes and really start to begin to repair relationships and things of that magnitude with community?
I could speak to in excuse me, where I'm from. We can really aggressively recruit minorities in law. I mean, I'm not talking about just putting it in the newspaper or putting it here but aggressively, recruit, because, the truth is that the law enforcement organization, no matter where you are, should be a reflection of
the communities they serve.
Boom. Because a wall is up now. And whether it's right or it's wrong, people relate differently to different people. You see what I'm saying? So
when you say aggressive, like,
I mean, going to career fairs at HBCUs.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying? I mean, aggressively. You cannot, and I'll share this with you. I worked at an organization, and I realized when I got there, I came from the outside. When I got there, I was a captain. I was the captain of patrol, captain operations. And I realized that I was the only minority on the patrol division, right? So I started asking questions. I'm talking to the hiring manager. I'm like, what's up? Why don't we have more minorities? And he said, well, they won't apply.
That's the company line.
Right? So I said, why? Have we researched? Have we tried to figure out why? I said, well, let's look at the process. So we started looking at the process. And the process was that, this is old school now, back in the day. The process was, hey, when we have an opening, we tell the officers that we have on staff to, talk to their friends and their family, and we put it in one newspaper, and we kind of go from there. And I said, well, let me ask you something. I said, if everybody that works here is orange, and you give that information to them and say, hey, go out and recruit your family and your friends, what type of applicants are we going to get? Orange people. Right. And so anyway, we worked and we figured it out and we worked. But when I say target, I mean HBCUs. I mean getting into high schools, getting in these schools early to help these young people realize that despite the black eye that law enforcement has, right, despite the bad things that happen, this is a noble and worthwhile profession if you have the heart to serve. You know what I'm saying? And that is the message that we need to do a better job of relaying to our young people.
Okay. With the organization that you're now in charge of, do they do court intervention as well, or is just like preventive care from like the family?
Okay, so when the young men come to us, they are court ordered. They don't come because they want to be there. They come to us because they're court. They went to court. They're in the juvenile system, and it's an alternative to them going behind the fence. And so, like I said, I mean, it is a great organization called AMI Kids. The kids go to school, right? They, mental health treatment if they needed, drug and alcohol if they needed. We take them to church, we take them fishing. We really work to tear those layers back and help them realize who they really are and the potential. They're children, but they've made some mistakes, but they still have time to get it right.
Is there a requirement for parental involvement? Like, do the parents have to be involved? Are y'all solely working with the kids?
It's a residential program, so they're with us 24/7, but we do keep in contact with the parents, if and when they need mental health treatment, we got to get the parents involved in that process. And, so we kind of do still work with the parents as well.
Is there a criteria for the kids to get in, or is this just solely court appointed?
Court ordered. So many parents, I'm telling you, I get calls all the time. Hey, Kevin, can I just bring my kid and get him in the program? Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. But when they come to us, they are in trouble. There's no doubt about it.
How many kids at a time are we talking about?
We have the capacity to hold 30 kids at a time at my specific site, but there are other sites around the country, Tampa, Florida, New Mexico, and each program is different. But at my program, I have the capacity for 30 young men.
Is there one in Georgia? I don't think I've ever heard of them.
Savannah River, I believe. Yeah. Look it up. If you get a chance, I mean, great organization, great mission, AMIkids.org.
Is that an acronym or it's just AMI?
It's Associate Marine Institute.
Oh.
But AMIkids.org. If you look that up, you get so much information, but a great program.
But you do some other stuff too. Don't you do like some motivational speaking, got some books out here? It's just, you're a man of many talents.
I try, I'm a life and leadership coach. A few years ago, I said, you know what, I'm gonna retire. And I know it's coming, so I need to prepare myself. What do I want to do? And so I went and got a coaching certification. Was doing a lot of one-on-one coaching with people, leaders, executives. I really enjoyed it, but I was still working a full-time job, and it's a lot. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so I can tell you that right after the murder of George Floyd, things shifted for me. You know what I'm saying? It went away from one-on-one talks and more workshop and sessions, because people want to understand. You know what I'm saying? And so it's been a lot of diversity, culture, and inclusion. You know what I'm saying? And so, I facilitate those conversations, just like we're having a conversation here today, with structure, to help people realize that, look, just because you're right doesn't mean I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying? We all have different perspectives, and we have to learn how to respect them. And especially in a service industry like law enforcement, service doesn't require agreement. You see what I'm saying? It does not work. Just because somebody lives a certain way, if they need you, they need you. You handle your business. And so I really enjoy that. I really enjoy lifting people up. My coaching, my coaching business called Weights Lifted Life and Leadership Coaching, and I'm all about helping anybody any way I can, even if it's just a smile, even if it's just how you doing. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody's got a voice. They just need to be heard, man.
Anything else, Marla?
No, I love the end note that you were on as far as talking to our young people and talking to them about, the significance of public service and the significance of law enforcement and the roles that they play in our community. I think that's incredibly powerful. Yeah. I still feel like our government needs to do so much to also just do a certain amount of civic education. Like, I feel like we need to really, like, part of reaching out into the community, and the reason why it can be so challenging sometimes is because those natural structures aren't there. Absolutely. Like, they don't already exist. Yeah. So I think there's so much work to be done there, but I appreciate you for all that you're doing and for the work that you're doing to spread the information and to also just make sure that you're painting different pictures for people. Right. I think when people have good interactions and they have good experiences, it can do a lot of work to, like, detract from headlines and to detract from even the things that you hate to see and the things that that are completely wrong. The experiences that I've had, I know with law enforcement, have informed me and shaped me.
Yeah.
And so they give you tools. They give people different tools to work with as they're thinking through things. So I appreciate you for the service that you've done for that, for sure.
Any final thoughts?
First of all, thank you. You know what I'm saying, for having me on the show. I really, really appreciate it. But I would say to anybody that's listening, we have to have open minds. You know what I'm saying? We have to have open minds. It is so easy to slip into the trap. You know what I'm saying? Of being. Doesn't matter what you look like. We all have biases, and it is so easy to slip into the trap. And so we can't be narrow-minded as a people. You know what I'm saying? If we're gonna move forward together, just have an open mind and talk to people. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just talk. Just talk. A conversation, man, will go a long way, because it'll open up the door for another conversation, and another one, and another one, and another one. And then finally, you get to know somebody maybe that doesn't look like you. You've built up enough courage. You've built a relationship with them to a certain degree, and you can really go deep and ask certain questions that you're just ignorant to. So if that's my closing, have an open mind.
How do people get in touch with you?
You can reach me. You can look me up on the website. It's kevinwaits.com. The L is silent, but it is the L in my name, KELVINWAITES, kelvinwaits.com. You can also look up waitslifted.com. Shoot me an email, touch me on my website. Now, I normally get back with people within 24 hours.
Maybe you're gone for 3 weeks. You ain't got
I mean, I gave my final thoughts for sure. This was awesome.
Over you. All right, so there you have it, people, and that's a wrap for our season. But you might want to keep your eyes open, because we might throw up a couple of segment specials. Shouts out to all the African American men that ran for office. Actually, I don't think any of them got through, but they ran very good campaigns. Larry Carter, Dante last name Carter too? I got this wrong. Okay, in any event, go to the website, ricecommunity.com.
We did a shout out for our guests.
I know, I was trying to think.
We profiled a lot,
but I know they don't have the same last name. They can't. Larry and Dante don't have the same last name, I don't believe. Jason B. Allen. There were some people running for school, but I think one of the females, I think Casey, did get to a runoff. So shouts out to Casey. I'm not sure if Waukesha won hers. I need to check with her. But shouts out to all of them for running great campaigns. They came here and blessed our platform with their running issues and all that good stuff. So shouts out to them. The fight is not over. It just may look a little different, but it's not over. It just looks different. In the coming weeks, definitely check out my television show on Image of a Man Network, which is on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. Also on the website, ricecommunity.com. Remember, that's Rice with a W, because I'm special like that. So WRICE community.com. And just keep your eye on the website. We have some great things coming on the TV show, definitely. But that is a wrap for the live podcast. Special thanks to my co-host Simone. Up until 3 weeks ago, you did a really great job, but it's fine. Special thanks to our guest coming all the way from special South Carolina, Mr. Kelvin Waits, and his beautiful wife over here in the corner. Nothing like seeing a spouse support, their mate. So special thanks to them. And we will see you guys sometime after the new year. So enjoy life, take it slow, and enjoy the ride. And we will see you next time, same place, same time, on the Leadership and Live podcast with your host, Ricardo D. Rice.